Unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica from the scrapbooks of Adrian Freighter. For most people, when a burglar breaks into their home, their greatest concern would be about losing cash, jewellery and other valuables. However, for an elderly Montego Bay businessman whose upscale home was broken into by a giant burglar, a white tourist of unsound mind, his primary concern was what would have happened to his diminutive wife had this 6-foot tall, 300-pound giant raped her. The elderly man, who was seemingly still in shock when he came to the office of the Gleaners Western Bureau days after the incident to report it, was still trembling as he gave an account of what had transpired, during which time he constantly kept saying, "What would have happened to my poor wife if this brute of a man had raped her? My God, what would have happened to her?" Based on police statistics, burglaries are common features in Montego Bay. However, the racket club complex where that incident took place in the year 2000 was considered somewhat insulated, as in addition to being in an exclusive neighborhood, it is next door to the police Year 1 headquarters, which would make it unattractive to a local burglar. What fascinated me about the story was the fact that the businessman's only concern was the safety of his wife and not his money and the other valuables in the house. In this edition of Lest You Forget, I will be revisiting that story from a story I wrote on the incident for the Gleaner. It was published on May 22, 2000 under the headline, "Giant Burglar Scares Woman." The story read as follows. A Canadian student is now behind bars at the Barney Street lockup in Montego Bay and is facing charges of housebreaking after he was caught red-handed inside a Montego Bay apartment he had broken into last Saturday night. A resident charged with housebreaking with intent and larceny is 21-year-old Dermot Kennedy, who is from Ontario, Canada, but attends the Georgia Technical High School in the United States of America. According to reports, shortly after 9 p.m. Saturday night, a female householder was alone in the penthouse of her racket club apartment when she heard an unfamiliar rapping on her door. Deciding it was not her husband who was out playing bridge with friends, she ignored the knocking. Shortly after, she heard a banging sound on the side of the building and out of curiosity looked outside the window. To her total surprise, she saw a burly white male believed to be over 6 feet tall and weighing over 300 pounds climbing a ladder towards her. The frightened householder quickly made a call to the police and then went into hiding before her unwelcome guests, later identified as both an ex-football player and an ex-soldier, climbed in through the window. When the police arrived, Kennedy met them at the door and informed them that he was a guest at the house. However, on hearing his bare-faced lie, the householder came out of hiding and after identifying herself, pointed out Kennedy as the intruder who had entered her house. When the lawmen tried to apprehend Kennedy, he put up a fight and it reportedly took 6 lawmen to pin him down so he could be handcuffed and taken away from the premises to be arrested. After Kennedy was arrested, his parents, who were said to be prominent Canadian doctors, flew into Montego Bay. They were present for his first court hearing on the matter. While for most persons it would be a case of all is well that ends well, for the businessman, all he wanted was for the matter to be settled in court so that the giant burglar could be flown out of the island as far away from his beloved wife as possible. In looking back at that story, it was definitely one of those unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica. Unforgettable stories out of Western Jamaica from the scrapbooks of Adrian Freighter. Before you go, please remember to subscribe.